Well, hi there. So in this video, we're going to be doing some extra practice related to equilibrium. Let's get started. Okay, so let's get started by taking a look at the first problem here. It says, assume the US economy is currently in equilibrium. And so it says, draw a correctly labeled graph of aggregate demand and aggregate supply and show each of the following: LRAS, and then the current and current output and price levels. So over here, we're going to first put this Y, that's for our output levels, price level, LRAS, aggregate demand, and whoop, I almost got it, SRAS. And if you miss it, just put a little dot right there so it kind of connects them all together. Now, it does say LRAS, so we did that. And current output and price levels are going to be YE and PLE. Now, a few of you who are eagle-eyed might be like, well, why didn't you put YF right here? YF is not needed, not required, unless they asked for it, unless asked for, right? So you don't need the YF, right? LRAS, this YF value is not required. So we did that, and we did that, and we did that. Now, assume the government increases spending on national defense without raising taxes. On your graph, show how that affects aggregate demand. So they're trying to key in there that it's going to increase aggregate demand. So we go AD1. And then it doesn't tell us to do this, but I always feel weird if we're leaving it hanging out there. Y1, and then I'm going to connect it up here with PL1 and put some arrows, just because I always feel a little strange not including all of these little extra notes. And this really shows the grader that you understand the effect of what this aggregate demand increase is going to do. How will this affect the unemployment rate in the short run? Explain. UE will decrease because more Y output. Right? And that's actually just enough to say that, right? In an economy, when you have more output, there's going to be less unemployment of resources. C, assume the economy adjusts to a new long-run equilibrium after the increase in government spending. How will the short-run aggregate supply curve of the new long-run equilibrium compare with that in the initial long-run, blah, blah, blah. Show the shift, and then explain. And I'll just kind of preemptively apologize. I spilled my coffee on this, so it's kind of gross looking, so I'm sorry. Now, this comes from basically the second lessons that we talked about with equilibrium, where the economy self-adjusts or self-corrects back. And that self-correction mechanism is going to occur through SRAS. So we would move our SRAS back. I'm going to use SRAS 2 here since we already had AD1 and a second level of that arrows. And then I'm going to put a PL2 all the way up here. This is awfully messy, but I think you kind of are getting the picture. So how will it compare? We're going to say new SRAS is left of original. So first, we do need to answer this question, right? How will it compare with that in the original? So that's the first part. And then it says show the shift, which we did that already, and then explain. And we would say SRAS decreases because we would say the higher price levels, therefore increased wages, therefore cost of production goes up, right? Cost of production rises is a way to say that. So there's a couple of ways we can say it. Really, increasing wages is part of the cost of production. It's really saying that these workers are going to have higher nominal wages and that that's going to raise the cost of production, right? These are nominal wages. They're going to be rising, increasing that cost of production, which is the causing of the SRAS, right? So what we're doing is connecting the shifter, which is cost of production, SRAS, with what's going on in the graph. And that's those higher prices when we went from PLE to PL1. Let's take a look at the second question. The data at right is given for country X. Is it in a recession, explanation, or neither? So let's see. Potential real output is 500. So we're going to compare what's the actual to that. And we've got CIG, and then we've got an XN. So let's see. 300 plus 75 plus what's our government spending? 50 plus, and then here we have 35 minus 40 is negative 5. And so we've got 120 there, 420. And $420 actual is less than 500 potential. And so that's the answer that we need, or we need to figure that out to answer this question. Because we are below potential, we would say therefore we are in a recession. Right? So hopefully not too bad to do that kind of a problem. If we're below full employment, we're in a recession. Based on your answer to part A, is the actual rate of unemployment greater than, less than, or equal to the natural rate of unemployment? Explain. We would say it's greater. right? Greater because we are below YF output, so must have cyclical unemployment. And that's really the best way to answer this, is to say we must have cyclical unemployment since we are below the YF level of output, or the potential level of output. You could also say YF potential output, because that's really where that's coming from, right? Potential output. Based on your answer in part A, how will the economy adjust in the long run in the absence of any government policy action? Well, this is a little bit tough without the graph, so I'm going to show you a quick graph of what that's going to be, right? And we're in a recession, so we're out here at Y1, and what we'll expect to happen in the long run is that SRAS will shift to the right. Now, you can actually explain this a little bit with a graph, but what's happening here is we're going to go from this recessionary point to that full employment point. And the reason why we would say SRAS will increase back to YF, because high unemployment, so wages, and this is going to be very similar to the last one, will decrease. Therefore, cost of production decreases, right? And again, these are nominal wages, right? They're not real wages in that sense. These are nominal wages are falling. And this is really because some pay is better than no pay. That's a phrase that I kind of used in class. So I'll put that over here to say, right, some pay is better than no pay. And so workers will be kind of induced to accept lower pay for employment. And as a result, the cost of production will fall, SRAS will shift back to the right, and will return to that YF level of output. Let's take a look at these multiple choice questions. Which of the following events will most likely cause, let me actually zoom in because I'm getting too old and I can't read it, will most likely cause an increase in both the price level and real GDP, right? And let me actually do a little bit of focus here to see if I can get it tight. There we go. Maybe not quite there. All right, that's good. So what we'd say, what's going to cause both price levels and real GDP to rise? So that would be aggregate demand rising. And so what in here is going to cause aggregate demand to rise? Well, not an increase, right? That's a problem there. Aggregate demand would rise, though, with XN increase, therefore aggregate demand increase. So that would be our right answer, B. Number two, if a reduction in aggregate supply is followed by an increase in aggregate demand, which of the following will occur? So what do we have here? We have a reduction in aggregate supply, that's to the 1 to the 2, and then an increase in the aggregate demand to the 3. So we went from here to here to here. Based on that, I know that prices went up, so D is our right answer. So the kind of thinking about this one is just by draw a little quick graph and see what it looks like. Number 3, which of the following statements concerning economic growth is true? If the population is growing faster than potential output, real GDP will increase. No, that would cause the per capita part to be larger. So actually, that's going to be the opposite of the correct statement, right? It's the reverse. Number B, letter B, with longer economic growth, there's an increase in aggregate supply. Yeah, by definition. So we can actually say B is our right answer. We don't know about the rich and the poor in terms of economic growth. We don't necessarily increase the economic welfare of the average citizen, right? We don't know that. And long-run growth is not just possible with demand management policies. It's typically actually supply management problems. All right, or management policies, right? You want supply side. Number 4, simultaneous increase in inflation and unemployment could be explained by an increase in what's following. So what would cause that, you think about, would be an SRAS shifting to the left, right? So if we had SRAS shifting to the left, that would lead to higher prices and less output. What would cause a decrease in that? That would be inflationary expectations. Higher inflationary expectations would cause workers to demand higher wages. It would decrease the SRAS and lead to that outcome. Number 5, how does the automatic adjustment mechanism move the economy to potential real GDP in the long run when current real GDP is above potential? So this is saying that we are out here, right? And so we are at Y1. And how does the economy return back to YF? Well, it returns back through the SRAS curve. Right? That self-adjustment process only ever happens through SRAS decreasing. And so why would that happen? Well, it would be because the nominal wages are rising, because we used to be here, right, before this kind of expansionary gap happened. Now we're way up here. So wages are going to start to rise because of the high rates of employment. So we would say low UE, therefore wages go up. And as a result, therefore, SRAS will decrease. And we kind of skipped the cost of production part there. So nominal wages rise, shifting short-run aggregate supply curve to the left, E. Number 6, without any policy interventions, the country of Mito has automatically returned to long-run equilibrium after experiencing a recessionary gap. So that would be when SRAS is going to increase because UE was high and wages went down, right? So really just kind of making these connections between, if we're in a recession, there's a lot of unemployment, wages are going to start to fall. Some pay is better than no pay. That's going to cause SRAS to shift to the right. And here, let's see whether we've got an answer that goes, nominal wages decreased as workers accepted cuts in their earnings. C. Number 7, an unanticipated decrease in aggregate demand when the economy is in equilibrium will result in, that's going to result in more unemployment. So let's see, a decrease in voluntary unemployment? No. Decrease in the natural rate? No. Decrease in no. Increase in unplanned inventory. That's actually the correct answer, D, unplanned inventories, because less, right? Less C. All right. And so we've kind of talked about inventory changes being an indicator of a possible recession. This is a good kind of example of that, right? If inventories are dropping, that's because consumers aren't buying those inventories. And it actually can cause this kind of temporary increase in inventories and make it look like your economy is doing really well, when in fact, actually, you're about to enter a recession. Number 8, an increase in blank will then cause an increase in aggregate demand and inflation in the short run. So what's going to cause an increase in AD? No, taxes wouldn't do that. No, spending, right? Because government spending is part of it. Right, G increase, therefore AD increase. 9, a decrease in the prices of inputs will cause which of the following to occur in the short run? So that would cause SRAS to rise, right, because it's cheaper to produce, right? Think about the cost of production. So an increase in aggregate demand? No, not demand. Increase in short and aggregate supply and a decrease in the price level, that will occur. If you're having trouble distinguishing between C and D, draw the graph, right? You can see when we draw the graph, when we shift SRAS to the right, price levels go down. So we would say price levels go down after SRAS shifts to the right. Number 10, a contractionary supply shock would most likely result in. So this just means a change, right? So if you ever see that supply shock, it means aggregate supply change. It's a shock. It's unexpected. So all that just really means it's like, oh my gosh. Ah! Contractionary means less. So we would say SRAS is decreasing. And what's that going to cause? Not a decrease in prices, but it does cause a decrease in employment, right? And that's, again, here thinking about what's going to happen when SRAS falls. We're going to move to SRAS 1, cause higher prices and less output. And so when there's less, you can't see that. There's less output, that means higher unemployment. Right? Think about, I am now below that level of full employment output. So hopefully this helped you with some practice related to equilibrium and showing and expecting what the changes are in our ADAS model. I'll see you next time.